Aloha party people, you are listening to Inside the Desert Oasis Room, episode number 197. This episode is sponsored by the Tiki Bar T-Shirt Club, where their monthly t-shirt designs pay tribute to a Polynesian bar or restaurant from days long past. Each design is available for a limited time and will never be produced again. For more information and to check out this month's shirt, visit tikibartshirtclub.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by the Tiki-Ti, a family-owned and operated tropical drink bar in Los Angeles, California. Come get their house specialty, the Ray's Mistake. For more information, check out their website, tiki-ti.com. If you have a product, service, or event that you'd like to bring attention to, we can help. This podcast reaches thousands of listeners in over 100 countries every week. Imagine hearing your ad in this spot, just like you're hearing this one right now. Sponsor an episode and get the exposure you deserve. For more information, go to desertoasisroom.com and click on Services. Today we chat with Greg Bansuelo, bartender at the world-famous Tiki-Ti. Greg comes from a long line of mixologists, including his uncle Lou Cruz, owner of the Outrigger, as well as his father John J.B. Bansuelo, who bartended alongside Ray Buhen at all the old-school Polynesian bars like the China Trader, Seven Seas, and the Luau. Learn what life was like for these old-school Filipino bartenders and what was contained in their personal recipe books, the coveted Black Books. And joining us on this session are our friends Boris Hamilton and Alex Lamb from the upcoming documentary, The Donn of Tiki. As always, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as we did bringing it to you. If you enjoy this podcast, please give us a good rating or stop by desertoasisroom.com and click on the tip jar. Every tip or donation, no matter the size, is very much appreciated and helps keep this podcast coming to you every week. Alrighty, make yourself a lapu-lapu and join us inside the Desert Oasis Room. And give it up for our friend, Greg Bansuelo.
Inside the Desert Oasis Room.
Can you hear me okay? How's my hair?
Perfect. Your hair is... Nah, it's a little shiny.
There's no hair. I know.
A little shiny on top.
That's why those lights. This guy, everybody goes, Greg, put your head down. You're blinding me. Little bald joke. Put up with that shit every day. Oh, not every day.
My brother does too.
Yeah, it's like.
Especially for me.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get there.
Wow, you know.
You get a little 8 head there, and your forehead's going down.
Save everything?
You know, Ed Begley Jr. uses a shower timer.
Okay, cool.
He uses a shower timer so that he's not in the shower longer than 5 minutes. He's a conservationist.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does that, because I have all this hair to wash. It just takes me so long sometimes.
I don't know. I don't have that problem. I'm in and out.
Yeah, it was a joke. I guess it was a bad joke. So, there you go.
Let's send you a Joe Coy.
A Joe Coy?
Yeah, you ever heard that part where he's in the shower? Why are you in the shower so long, Joseph?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you have dandruff still using the head and shoulders?
He's in there for 30 minutes and his hair's fucking dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay. Well, we're rolling.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Good thing. It's
God.
all documented. It's all documented. It's all documented. So,
sorry. Okay.
Let's talk about your uncle's recipe book. So, first of all, I want to give recognition to your dad. We never hear anything about your dad, and I think the last time you and I recorded was you and Mike. We talked a little bit about your dad. I want to know more about your dad because he was one of those unsung heroes from back in the day that worked alongside Ray and probably a few of the others that we've read about in Jeff's books, right?
Yeah, I mean, my dad, all those guys worked at different places. Like, my dad worked at Donn of Tiki. He worked at Seven Seas a little bit, and then he worked at a place, my favorite, it's called the Tahitian.
The Tahitian.
Yeah, that was in Studio City. And if you go down, like, Ventura Boulevard, when you first, like, over there by Barham, you would turn left up the hill a little bit because there's a driveway, or you'd have to drive up to it. And it had, like a driveway where you get your car, park your car, valet.
Let me start by asking, what was your dad's name?
John Bansuelo.
John Bansuelo.
He used to call him JB or Jelly Belly.
Right. JB or Jelly Belly.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was...
He went to Down the Beach Club for a little bit.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay. But he wasn't one of the original guys?
No.
All right. It was later on. Okay.
Yeah, like I saw a big old menu with all the pictures of the employees.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're... There's a guy, there's a picture of him, and the title under him was called Johnny. I'm not sure if that was my dad or not, but it looked a hell of a lot like him. So I'm not saying it was or it wasn't, but, there was a whole bunch of, guys working there.
Too, and where did that even come from?
I know. I don't know if you
know what I'm
run
talking about,
across
Alex?
it. Yeah.
I don't, no.
Oh, it's like it's almost like a class picture.
Yeah.
Where it's got 20 different Don's employees all in a little oval with their name underneath it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It just showed up.
Should I mic you?
No.
You want a mic?
It just showed up. It just showed up like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I saw that too. Like, that looks like my
what?
dad when he was young. Because I used to got pictures of my dad when he was young, and I looked just like him. But he
Really?
never lost his hair. Yeah, there's like a picture of him.
Can you send me one of your dad? I think I've asked you before because I want to
I think
feature
I sent
him.
it to you already. But
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you text it to me?
I think so, yeah.
All right, let me check. But
We can't see it over this because we're on a podcast.
yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, I'm still going to check. How long was your dad bartending? And was that his main thing? Did he have another day job, or was it really just all bartending?
Well, he worked at nighttime mainly because that's when he made the most money. I mean, he worked as a bartender. He also did, worked as a waiter. He was a maitre d' at some places, and then, but his main job was he worked for IBM.
Oh,
Okay, so that was his.
so this
thing.
was just kind of like a moonlighting thing.
Yeah, to make more money because
Right.
he had a lot of kids.
Yeah, I don't know how many Bansuelos are there of you guys.
Well, there's I'm the youngest of 11, so but they're all I got
11.
Yeah,
11.
but some of them were half brothers and sisters, but we don't count that. But
Of course.
the thing is that
No wonder he liked working at night.
well, he's a good-looking guy. I mean, I can show you pictures, but
Johnny B?
yeah, but they used to call him or JB. That's what my older brother Timmy called him. Anyway, but his main job was working at IBM during the day. But he started off in Hawaii picking pineapples, so there are farm worker stuff going on too.
What do you remember about his life as a bartender when you were younger?
Well, I would go to Tahitian. My mom we would go eat because they serve Chinese food there, and I remember him being behind the bar.
So it was like a typical old school tiki place with Cantonese food.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but back then they didn't call it tiki; they called it Polynesian. Or tropical, whatever. But
Right.
Tiki was kind of that's what the tiki. It was a statue.
Okay.
I don't remember
Yeah.
tiki even being the word used for that. I mean, as far as my recollection is concerned, but all I remember is Polynesian or tropical.
Okay.
I don't know if you run across
Do,
tiki.
do you remember did you ever visit any of the spots that he was working at?
It's Tahitian, and
okay.
I remember going to the Luau because he worked there a little bit.
Okay.
The Stephen
And how
King one.
old were you? Were you old enough to drink, or were you a kid that would come in? And,
Yeah, they would take me to dinner because we were young. We were maybe
yeah.
6, 7.
Oh, so you were a little kid.
Yeah, we were. I didn't go in there to drink.
Yeah.
I mean,
So 11 of you would go to the luau?
No.
It was literally a luau.
It could be. That's possible. I don't remember. All I remember is that we were the youngest, and they were all grown up, out of the house by then. I mean, my oldest brother was 24 years older than me. I had a sister that was 22 years older than
Wow.
me. So I came in 55.
So your older brothers were like uncles, basically.
Well, I have other words for them, but
Yeah, okay, but you know what I mean.
yeah, they're older brothers. But they were more I didn't grow up in the house with them. So.
Right.
But my dad, he worked a lot. He worked a lot. I mean, his regular job, and he would bartend, and he would, like he did, and he would come home with jars. I mean, big old bags of change, because there was no dollar bill tips.
Right,
There were,
because it was
quarters.
yeah.
They had the silver dollars back then, so you got a lot of that. So
From his tips.
yeah, but nobody was tipping dollar bills or anything.
Right,
like that.
right.
If you got a bill, you were like, whoa.
What do you remember about a couple of things? So you probably didn't know anything about the bar culture back then.
I know that people got drunk and they would get into fights or arguments, and they were just like, to me, they were like being.
I'm
weird.
just curious. What? And if you were young, you would know this. I'm just curious how much of that you. I'm just trying to glean some information on what was a typical day there. Like, we could describe a typical day at the Tiki-Ti. I know that they're always different.
Yeah.
But there is a typical day, right? And the typical kind of clientele. And I'm curious how different it was back then as it is today. Like, today there's an expectation with a lot of bars that you're going to get a quality drink.
Right.
And I'm curious how much of that was even a thing back then.
Well, you go with, I'll give you an example. Tisha, a lot of celebrities used to go there because it was so close to Hollywood. And when I used to go there, my brother Tim worked there, my brother Sonny worked there, because they were in their early 20s. So they were either bus boys or they were like trained to be waiters. But you walk into those places, you see the bar over there. We usually sat in booths in the restaurants, and my dad would come over and he would take our order because we were a family, and we would see celebrities there. But basically it was more of a restaurant experience for me. Mm-hmm. But watching my dad, he would, go behind the bar, make drinks, and he would also serve food. He did it all.
He did everything.
He did everything.
Yeah.
It wasn't only one thing.
Do you remember anything about his colleagues?
I remember. Oh yeah, there was like this one guy. He's my brother-in-law. He used to be a waiter. He was only a short-time waiter, but they all used to sit there and wear their uniforms and work at night. And I remember the old Luau uniforms with the white pants, the white shoes, and the blue flowery, what would you call it, shirt or frock or whatever with the big pockets. And they would have the order taking in one pocket and, their tips in the other. And, that would be sagging. But, I remember being in those places and being like, going to Hawaii or something like that.
So you also felt the escapism still back then?
Yeah, because that was our culture. I mean, my dad was born in Hawaii. My mom her family was Filipino, but my grandfather, her side, was born in I think it was Ilocano. He was born in the Philippines. So all of that was there. I mean, we always had a pot of rice on the stove.
Did you feel like that was a natural thing for your family to fall into, or was it? Did your family find their way there because they needed a job and they knew somebody who could get them a job?
Well, you have to realize that the culture, a lot of Filipino restaurants, a lot of those restaurants and places like were Filipino.
But there weren't a lot of Filipino restaurants.
No,
they were working as part of like the Filipino community, right?
Right, I misspoke a little bit. All those employees that worked in those places were mainly Filipino.
Right.
Unless you went to Trader Vic's.
So I guess what I'm saying is that when they came here from Hawaii, was it natural for them to just gravitate towards that community because they felt comfortable around other Filipinos, or is it because like, oh, I know a guy that can get you a job, and they're just looking for a job because they're
definitely a network.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, they're hiring over here at this place, and they're paying more money, so they would move over to that place because they made maybe $5 extra a week, which is a lot of money back then.
Right.
So, it was all, they were into the service industry, before, I don't want to sound racist or anything, but there were maybe Asian Filipino workers working or in the restaurants, the Polynesian restaurants. Okay, so most of them were Filipinos.
Yeah.
Okay. If you went to Trader Vic's, he had a lot of Chinese workers working for him because they were in Northern California.
Right.
And they were San Francisco. There was a big Chinese influence there.
It's
as well.
the largest Chinatown outside of China.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think they gravitated to Trader Vic's more than the Filipinos did, because Filipinos were still mainly farm workers in the San Joaquin Valley, picking grapes, peaches, whatever you want to do that. So I think in LA, there's a big Filipino community in Temple Street near downtown.
Yeah. Old Filipino town.
Old Filipino town.
Yeah.
That's where we mainly lived.
Right.
So that was a big community too. So we used to go to the Filipino Community Center, and they were all waiters. They were all busboys, waiters.
I'm asking about like his colleagues and what you know, because I'm curious how many are out there that we don't know about that had some kind of an impact, because there's only so many that have been documented, right?
Right. Well,
Jeff Berry's done a great job with that, but I mean, he only got so far, and you and I or anybody else can only get so far with who else do you know?
Yeah.
You know, because it was so long ago, you're going to have like, oh, well, you know, that's really all they know. That's like my aunt knows this guy, or my grandpa knows this guy, or my uncle knows this guy, or whatever, you know.
Well, I had a conversation with my aunt, and her husband, whose name is Lou Cruz. He had an uncle that was supposedly owned the Outrigger in La Cunada back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's where he bartended. And he got it was nepotism with it because his uncle was part of it.
Yeah.
So, and there are a lot of Filipinos working there. And like I said, they had a network. They would, call each other up, say, "Hey, we're looking at somebody," and that's how it works today. In the restaurant business.
Yeah.
So, with that picture I was talking about that Boris mentioned,
right.
If you look at it, all those guys were there. All mainly Filipino guys that were working for Donn the Beachcomber when it got a little bit bigger. And, those guys were, who knows about those guys? Who were they?
Yeah, I'm curious, like how many of those guys made an impact in the cocktails, or even in that particular piece of Polynesian pop culture. Like, for example, I guess one of the things that I'm trying to get at is, we know that the Luau, well, I shouldn't say the Luau. We know that the Lapu Lapu is a cocktail that was named after a Filipino folk hero, right?
Chief Lapu Lapu, yeah.
Chief Lapu Lapu, right?
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, Chief Lapu Lapu is the war hero, commander-in-chief, or not commander-in-chief, but he was a warrior in the Philippines that took down Magellan when Magellan came to the Philippines. Took down Magellan and his army. So, he's, obviously like very revered in the Philippines. And you have this cocktail that by many accounts came from the Luau. Like, no one really knows exactly the origin of that cocktail, but I think what people are surmising is that they think it came from the Luau somewhere in the 1950s, right?
Okay, yeah.
I think that's what it was.
Well, there's also the Atinanting. That's another Filipino drink.
Another Filipino drink.
Yeah.
So we know the guys on some of this stuff, right? We know Ray Buhen, right? Who came from Donn's, one of the original 4 Filipinos, found his way to the Dresden, retooled the Blood and Sand for Tyrone Powers, but we don't know anything about, like, who came up with this Lapu Lapu, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if we'll ever get that answer.
Well, it's kind of hard because back in the day, those guys are just there to make money, to work as a job.
I get it. But what I'm talking about is we have a guy here who is obviously a major contributor to that tiki subculture and that particular cocktail culture, but he's this anonymous person.
Right. Well, all I remember is a lot of those guys and his friends, they all had their own recipe books. Because they all, had their own recipes that they did. And I remember looking at my dad's. He usually kept it next to his horse racing book. Because Filipinos like to play the horses.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They like to gamble.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. Las Vegas, forget about it. But, and I remember looking, I go, Dad, don't touch that. That's my recipe. Oh, yeah, big time. They all were.
Yeah.
And
an 8-year-old was going to go open his own bar.
Well,
I thought about it. No,
I don't think it was that. I mean, like, I think it was just that
I was being curious.
Make sure you go in a place with an existing liquor license.
Yeah.
Right.
I was being curious about, because, I liked my dad. I always wanted to hang out with him, and when I opened it up, I go, "What's this, Dad?" And he goes, "Oh, don't touch that. You're gonna ruin it." And it was very meticulous. It was all in his handwriting.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at that, and that's one thing that stuck out of my head. But when I was growing up, it just didn't really dawn on me all this was going on. I think that the memory came back is when I started hanging out at Tiki-Ti again.
And then you saw Ray's book.
And I saw Ray's book. I go, "Well, that looks like my dad's." And then I told my dad, they were friends, and my dad brought me to the Tiki-Ti one day. And they were busy talking about old stuff, and I wanted to go someplace else. And
Yeah, because you don't want to hang out with your dad at that time.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And
I get it. I was the same way.
But there's a guy. I mean, look at only one other guy I know that's pretty famous is that guy that worked at Tips.
Yeah, that's Bobby Batugo.
Yeah, I mean, he was famous for that. But,
He was a world champion cocktail. So I think he won best cocktail something like several years in a row.
I
Right.
think like maybe 3.
Yeah, like
Right.
3.
For sure 2.
Yeah, I think it was 3.
And then there was the guy that worked at the Maikai in Florida. That's another Filipino guy, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was Mariano.
Yeah, Mariano. So,
Yeah.
there's all these guys that worked in places like that, but there's a lot of them that, time's forgotten. They're not there anymore.
Right.
Like my dad, he like I said, back then it was all about making money so they could survive.
Right.
Okay, and
They weren't thinking about legacy or anything
No,
like
back
that.
then they were just saying, "Hey, we're making drinks and having a good time." My uncle used to say, "I just worked there because I got tips, and there are a lot of beautiful women walking in there." It wasn't because he was like worried about becoming a famous tiki guy.
Yeah.
As you got older, did your dad ever make any of his drinks at home for you?
Well, he used to. Like we lived in La Puente. They used to have big old ass birthday parties, and he had his own home bar. I got pictures of him behind the bar making drinks.
Did he have a tiki bar? Oh, I want a copy of one of those pictures.
Well, it's not exactly. It wasn't exactly a tiki bar, but he was making tiki drinks.
Okay.
And this is a dress that.
So, the reason why I asked about the tiki bar was a couple things. So people were doing their luau's, home luau's
Right.
back then, and people were doing Polynesian rooms. Now, even Ray had a tiki room in the house behind the Tiki-Ti. Like,
Right.
I've seen it with my own eyes. It was in their back porch area, right? And which they use for storage now. And that was actually not uncommon.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, if your dad had that would actually be kind of a, that was a thing.
Well, I do remember there's a picture of him behind the bar making drinks. A cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
Right, right.
We're
So-
going to need that picture.
Okay.
Yeah, we need that
You just
picture.
said it, but we need that.
All right,
We're gonna
I
need
got
that
that.
picture.
All right. And then there's a picture of my mom wearing one of those like Polynesian dress, the tropical dresses that women are wearing right now. They're like,
We're going to need that too.
yeah, okay,
Yep.
I got that.
We need all that.
Okay, but and those were natural. This it wasn't
yeah.
a big deal. Nobody said, "Oh, this is a tiki drink" or "This is a tiki dress."
That's how it was.
They that's the way we did it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big wow.
How long was your dad in the bar industry?
He was there up until I want to say the 80s, and then he stopped doing that, and then he worked at as a data processor at Shepherd Company, the guys that make the earth movers out in Rosemead, Rose Hills. So off of 61 or something like that.
Yeah. So
Anyway, so
605
he
and
would
60.
work at nighttime data processing, and then he would work in the restaurant business as a cook too. So he did it all.
Right.
Was he an amazing cook?
Oh yeah, I learned a lot from him. But
Is that where you learned to make adobo?
actually, I learned that from my mom. She made the best adobo. My dad has other talents. He made this Filipino chop suey that was the best. I mean, it had bok choy in it, spinach, string beans.
That sounds great.
Oh, I know it is.
Are you going to make that for us today?
I wasn't prepared, but I can. Go to the market. I'll write down the ingredients. But like I said, I don't know. My dad worked it. All I remember is my dad coming home with stuff all over his white pants.
Right.
Okay, from the Luau, and a bunch of change in his pocket.
Yeah.
And he would pour it out on the table, and I would help him count it.
So his black book,
I don't know what happened to that. It's gone.
long gone.
I mean, last time I saw that, he was staying with me when I was living in Mission Viejo, and he had all his stuff there. And then after that, that's the last time I saw it.
And he was pretty protective of it.
Oh yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
So all these guys probably had one if they were all like that. If they probably all treated it very.
yeah.
There's probably still guys that have them that are still protective of them.
Or they don't know what
Yeah.
they are. Their family doesn't know what they are. Like my aunt, she found that.
There
one
are
notepad.
guys who died with those secrets. There are
Right.
guys who died
Definitely.
protecting that, you know? Like it
Well-
was something that they were never, ever going to share with anybody, and then they're gone.
This is proof of it right there.
There's
my aunt
one.
found
So-
this in the bottom of a drawer 2 years after my.
So let's segue to this. So for
Okay.
our listeners that can't see what Greg is saying, my aunt found this, because this is an audio show.
Oh, sorry.
What
I look
Greg-
good on audio.
What Greg is holding in his hand is
A notebook.
it's a little notebook. We're calling it a black book because the cover is gone.
Yeah.
But it was his uncle's little recipe book.
2.5 by 5 inches.
Right.
Yeah, something that could fit in your back pocket. And it's all handwritten recipes from the Outrigger.
Right.
From the restaurant that he owned.
Well, his uncle.
His uncle owned
Yeah,
it?
he's my uncle by marriage.
Okay.
And his
Uncle
uncle.
Cruz.
Yeah, Uncle
Got
Cruz.
you.
Yeah.
Got you. And his full name?
Lou.
Lou
Ted.
Cruz.
And Ted Cruz was his uncle. Louis Cruz. No, how'd you know?
There was
It
a Ted
Ted.
Cruz in your
Yeah.
family? Oh, don't sit next to me.
That was his uncle. Ugh, you're psycho. Psycho.
Lou Cruz.
Lou Cruz is my uncle. His uncle was named Ted Cruz.
Okay.
Or Teddy. They call him Teddy.
Okay.
And she, after my uncle passed away, she just started going through his stuff just recently.
Yeah.
And she found this little notebook. And he goes, oh, what is this? And my cousin Tony was with her and goes, oh, those look like recipes Dad used to have when he worked at the Outrigger. And then she goes, oh, we got to give this to Greg
So handwritten recipes.
from the Outrigger.
From the
circa
Outrigger.
1950s, 60s.
I don't know how many are in there. What?
There's
40?
40 drinks, yeah.
Something like that, 40-ish.
A
And
lot.
and a lot of them are Donn the Beachcomber cocktails, which I'm curious about. So how much do you know about his history, resume, all that kind of stuff? Was there any tie to Donn the Beachcomber? Did anybody work at Donn the Beachcomber?
I'm sure a lot of people did. My uncle knew that, well, my dad did. And I know my uncle knew a lot of people. Like I said, these guys moved around a lot. Like,
Yeah.
you working at Donn the Beachcomber one week, then, oh, I'm over here at the Outrigger now. Or I'm working at the Luau, or I'm working over at the Seven Seas. It didn't, people would just jump around a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even Ray only lasted almost a year at
Don's.
At Don's.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I forgot how many bar places he worked at.
He worked
my
at
dad,
all of them.
My dad worked at a lot of them too.
Yeah, yeah.
So they jumped around a lot. So a lot of drinks were brought over,
Yeah.
and the owners were, hey,
And these guys were probably sharing their recipes with each
oh,
other,
definitely.
right? Yeah.
Well, I'm sure once one of these guys became a head bartender somewhere else, then he would pass down those recipes to his guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but Beachcomber, rum drink, whatever. It didn't necessarily have to be Donn the Beachcomber. It's just some guy. He was a beachcomber. So, anyway, those guys shared a lot of recipes, and sometimes they have their own books. Like if you go to Sid, he has all his recipes down.
Sure.
At his own, but they're always on the board. There's no mystery about him, but he creates his own recipes.
So that leads me to wonder, when you went to a lot of these bars, you had the menu with the cocktails in it.
Right.
But like Sid, when he runs his shift, he puts his cocktails on the board.
Correct.
And they're not on the Tonga Hut menu.
No.
Now, that makes me wonder if these guys were doing the same thing.
Well, they had a menu there, and this from what my aunt told me, she says these were handwritten by Ted for my uncle when he first started bartending.
But these are his own.
No, these
were from
Ted's.
the-
These are from Ted's.
Right. So what I mean is, like, when he was working there, maybe when he's working a shift,
Right.
was this the stuff that was from the menus there, or was this his own stuff that it was in addition to the menus? Because, like a lot of these guys had an audience, right? They had people that followed him from bar to bar. Like, for example, Ray Buhen is famously known for having people that would follow him when he left the China Trader and he ended up at the Luau or vice versa.
Right.
His crowd would follow him to wherever he was next.
Right.
So that's what makes me wonder, was this what your uncle was doing? Is that what these recipes are in this book?
No, this is written from my uncle by his uncle, Ted.
Right.
So when he was bartending, he could refer back
Right.
to what the drink was ordered. So they were on the menu.
Okay.
Okay. He just used this.
Yeah, just as
So-
a reference.
So he can remember. It's like I have index cards,
Like
so
you
I
have
can
your
remember the
index cards,
recipes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is a tool for him to use when he was making drinks if he forgot what was in it.
Yeah. So looking at this, there's a few ingredients in there that are common denominators.
Right.
Right. there's a lot of absinthe in these.
Yeah, because it
recipes.
was legal back then.
So, which I found really interesting. So a lot of absinthe in there,
Yeah.
a lot of ango in there, a lot of grapefruit
Yeah.
in there, which was kind of like, wow. So there's a lot of commonality across the board. And it's funny, like when you think about like, you know, how cocktails, they're so different today, you know.
It's more standard today, I think. Back then, you know, they were making their own drinks. They had their own special drinks, but they weren't allowed to make the drinks that they came up with. They were just allowed to, it was on the menu, that's what you made. For more consistency basis. It's like if you looked at the number of the bottles, the recipes like at Trader Vic's, they numbered the bottles, they're made in the back, but it was always following a recipe.
Right.
It's like baking a cake or something like that.
So what are your thoughts about that? Do you think you don't think that he made up any of his own stuff?
Not my uncle, but maybe his uncle did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I always argue that I don't know any bar in the world where bartenders come in and just make drinks like robots.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
Like you go to well, I used to manage this place in Hollywood called Amagi's, and they had their recipe for Mai Tai. Okay, but it had grenadine, orange juice, sweet and sour juice, you know, and then you put the rum on top, float Myers on top. That was their Mai Tai, which is not really a Mai Tai.
Right.
You go to Hawaii, some of the Mai Tais there are really terrible because, you know, they're not following the recipe.
Right.
Even the Mai Tai bar in the Royal Hawaiian in Honolulu and in Waikiki, worst Mai Tai I ever had. Turtle Bay, though, on the other side of the island, good Mai Tai.
Mm.
So the resort, that was a good Mai Tai.
Yeah.
And a better atmosphere. But
They better have a good Mai Tai there,
yeah.
right?
But, you know, the whole thing is that right now it's more standardized. It's not the grenadine or the pineapple juice or whatever they do with these other places. Like, call that a Hawaii Mai Tai, by the way. Now it's like, you know, hey, it should be, you know, golden in color because of the rum. And there's no grenadine, there's no pineapple juice, you know.
I'm curious, do you have an idea of like the time period from this book?
50s, 60s.
There's one thing that's missing from there that I've noticed. There's no fashionola in any recipe.
They call it New England.
They did?
Yeah.
Is it in there?
Yeah, it's called the first recipe right there.
What is it called?
They call it New England.
That's what they called fashionola?
Yeah, because of the English,
That
Jonathan
was the
English.
brand they were using.
The
Oh,
brand,
it was a
yeah.
brand. Okay.
Yeah. That was the fashionola they used.
Interesting.
So, like the Greg grog, that's one of your drinks, right?
Well, it's the Navy grog, and I tweak it a little bit because people like the taste of the bitters. Not the bitters, but the allspice.
Okay.
So
I'm a fan of the Greg grog. What else do you do that people can order from you specifically on that end of the bar?
you know, I sell a lot of scorpions. That's my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, because you know I tweak that a little bit. But
Do you remember that recipe?
No. Yeah, I do, but
The reason why I'm asking is because maybe I can order one.
yeah,
Here,
you've
can I make
had
one?
my scorpions.
I have had a scorpion.
I love your scorpion. It's
Yeah.
good.
My scorpion.
But you know, we have a different mix, and it's not like a real scorpion, like a scorpion bowl.
Sure.
So again, it's
Yeah, it's a
not.
cocktail.
It's a Tiki-Ti recipe that we call a scorpion.
It's different than everybody else's.
Yes.
And I love it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think it's as dry as everyone else's.
No,
It's
no.
a nice scorpion.
It's a nice scorpion.
You got more of the almond taste.
So let's
to
make
it.
one after. Let's make one after this
How
because
about now?
Okay.
I want one. You want to make one now? You want to make one now?
Another thing that's awesome about the notebook is that in that first recipe, he lists falernum as Munraloff, but then later on the page, for a different recipe, he writes it as falernum. So it's like he was either just copying somebody else's recipe where they were hiding it and spelling it backwards, and then the next recipe
Yeah.
wasn't, or
Well, Munraloff
was it a different brand?
It was a brand, yeah,
Oh.
But it was still falernum.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a brand.
Because I've read about there was another brand of falernum where it was spelled backwards, but then a lot of people think that they were doing that to
I like the
keep it
spelling.
secret.
The spelling of the backwards. Oh, that's interesting.
Like I said, you know, I will tell you when I first started working at Tiki-Ti, we went through the whole menu and it was off the top of Mikey's head,
Yeah.
and I wrote it down.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was ever, if it's written down anywhere. It's probably in the black book, but that's the way I learned how to make the drinks.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I had to put it in a file because I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
He said, "Give me." We had lunch at the Tex over at Sunset, and we were there for like a good 3 hours, going through all the recipes. And 96 drinks later, or 94, whatever it is, we were pretty tired.
Oh yeah, that's a long day.
And then I went home and I copied them on index cards
Yeah.
and had my little file. But that was.
Well, how did you do it when you were at Tex?
Oh, I remember the recipes. Tex was. Oh, I just memorized the recipe for they have their version of the blood and sand.
No, what I mean is like you went home and you transcribed them onto the index cards afterwards. But how did you document them when you sat down with Mikey? You just wrote them in a notebook?
No, I wrote them, like we went down the list and I wrote them on the page.
Oh, on the page.
Yeah. Then I went home and transcribed them onto the index cards.
Do you have that original note? The notes that you originally wrote?
Yeah, it's in my.
Not the
house.
note cards.
No, where I wrote it down. Yeah, it's at my house.
Oh, that's. I bet that's kind of a cute, cool little document.
Yeah, but I don't have it. It's proprietary.
Winky wink.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, I'm talking about like just as for historical.
Again, you know what? I did
because we don't think of that stuff.
I don't think of that stuff.
We don't think of it that way.
And that's the way it was back in the day. They didn't think this was going to be a big deal. But
think about how many of these black books like just disappeared and went into the trash, and how many of them probably had unique recipes to the person that owned it.
It blows my mind thinking about that. But the thing is,
crazy, right?
This is in the bottom of a drawer or a box that my aunt was going through one day.
Yeah.
All right. So how many of their books are in the bottom of somebody's box that they just get rid of or whatever. But
and this thing is already falling apart. I bet if you open that drawer, you might find another page or two in there.
My aunt's still looking through his stuff.
Yeah.
So you never know what's going to be found. But she told me that a lot of old menus, a lot of mugs and swizzle sticks were all thrown them out. She threw away a lot of that stuff.
Wow.
And I go, Auntie, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah,
she goes,
Well, she doesn't know.
She didn't know. She goes, don't yell at me. I go, I'm not yelling. I'm just getting a little excited.
Wow.
She goes, don't ever yell at me like that. I go, okay. How many Filipino bartenders are still out there? Like, I know there's me.
People have asked me this. People have asked me this question before, and if we're talking about like from the tropical bar perspective, there's not really a lot,
right?
And it actually kind of surprises me. Like I think that if the community today knew, I think that there might be some kind of an influence because of the history, right? For some of these mixologists to find their way back into this tropical scene. But I know of a guy, he was a pretty good bartender at Thompson and Twain in Temecula. So shout out to Steven. His Instagram name is Steven Urkel. That's not his real name, obviously, but that's his Instagram name. And he's a pretty good craft cocktail bartender. I can't remember the guy's name that's at Harvard and Stone.
This is the guy in Tonga, I think, maybe, in Palm Springs.
Filipino guy?
I think, because I went there, Mikey and I went to go play golf one time, and there was the only bar that's open, and there was a Filipino kid working there. He says his dad worked at the Tonga Hut in Palm Springs, because we were playing golf down there in Palm Springs. And I go, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll get over there. I don't remember. You guys.
I don't remember seeing anybody.
Yeah, so that was a long time ago. That was like maybe 15 years ago.
Maybe he was just temporary.
Yeah, it could be.
The only other one that I really know of, like prolifically, is Skull and Crown. So Noah Lapurga is the owner operator of Skull and Crown in Hawaii, and he's of Filipino descent. He's Filipino Hawaiian.
Oh, well, there's one at Duke's too. He's a young kid though.
Okay.
I go with him. Hey, can you make this? He goes, I can make anything, brother. What color is it?
Yeah. See.
I know.
And then you have here in Southern California, you have Jennifer, but it's a gin bar. It's not a tiki bar. And then you have a couple in New York. One by the name of Jeepney. Do you know Jeepney?
No.
And another one by the name Maharlika. Those are also Filipino craft cocktail bars. We had Mam Sir, which was catty corner to Tiki-Ti, which made really great craft cocktails, Filipino owned, and it was a modern take on Filipino food, Filipino fusion. I don't know if that's what you'd call it. I mean, the food was still...
I call it bougie Filipino food.
It was bougie Filipino.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really fusion because it was still Filipino... authentic Filipino, but it was...
They're catering to a different crowd.
Yeah, it was elevated. It was like Master Chef Filipino food.
Yeah.
And that guy, Charles Olaila, I don't know what he's doing these days, but they shut down due to COVID. Like they couldn't make it through COVID, which was a real bummer because they had a really great thing there. They had a really great restaurant, and the bar was churning out some really good cocktails.
Gotcha.
So... Other than that, I mean, I'm not really familiar with much more.
Oh well, say la vie.
Yeah, so it's a dying breed that maybe like there can be a resurgence. I don't know, but
We'll find out.
yeah,
I'm
we'll
not
see.
having any
We'll
kids
see.
anytime soon. So.
Yeah.
That's
Can you tell us about? I mean, this doesn't really have to do with your uncle, but can you tell us about Leon Lontok and how you would
Leon
see him at
Lontok
the
was a real
Tiki-Ti?
popular actor at East Coast Tiki-Ti. He was real good friends with Ray. I know his son Howard, and he's a good friend. Him and his wife Liz, and they live in Silver Lake. He owns his own.
Oh, he just lives right down the street.
Yeah, he lives in. He has his own exterminating company. So if you ever need a good exterminator, he's the guy to go to. But
He could be a sponsor.
yeah,
Right.
And, his father,
Sponsored by Leon Lontok's son.
right. So Leon used to go to Tiki-Ti and bring adobo all the time for
Oh, that's cool.
for Ray and all those guys. And if you ask Senior, hey, Leon? Oh yeah, Leon. He had the best adobo. So anyway, but every now and then Howard and his wife would come into Tiki-Ti, and I guess they would talk to Mike Senior all the time because he knew Leon. So Leon Lontok he was a good actor. He was I remember him being the chauffeur in a show called Burke's Law with Gene whatever.
Gene Barry, right?
Gene Barry. Yeah. So he actually played Bat Masterson in the old Western series back from the 50s.
Yeah, you go to his IMDb page. He's in
He's in a lot of
got a
places.
few
tons of
things.
stuff. Yeah.
But he was never in Backed Up at Tad. Although my aunts were.
Really?
Yeah, John Wayne comes up and he's returning like MacArthur did. You have a bunch of Filipino women running up to John Wayne going, yeah. My aunts are in that scene.
Really?
Yeah, when they were young.
That's cool.
Yeah, you have to pause it and try to find it, slow-mo it, but they're there.
That's
Anyway.
hilarious. How many of these guys knew Ray?
He
Probably knew like
he probably knew all
them,
of
right?
them.
Yeah.
My dad knew a lot of people.
When did Tony Ramos come along? Because Tony Ramos came later, right? Like 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know he's one of the younger guys.
Yeah, like I said, back in the day, the 20s, you had that Filipino immigration, back in then. That was the biggest one. Now, I guess you have to be professional or you have to know somebody or whatever to, come to the United States or be immigrated.
Well, so obviously that was almost a century ago.
Yeah. So it was easy. So
Yeah, it was a lot different.
A lot of them hit Hawaii first, and they either go to
Right.
San Francisco or they come to L.A.
Right.
Or they go in the San Joaquin Valley and become farm workers.
Yeah.
Because there's a big Filipino community in the San Joaquin Valley.
Right,
You go
right.
through Delano, Bakersfield, all
Yep.
through there. I mean, I picked grapes during the summer as a summer job. So with my brother-in-law. And
Wow.
So that's another story.
Wow.
I don't eat grapes anymore, though.
Well, that's where Newhall, where Bobby was working, the Newhall tips.
Bobby
That's
Batuga.
on the way to that valley.
Yeah, it's in the start of the grapevine.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but like I said, I've had it all. I've seen it all. Restaurant workers, Filipino workers. My dad was part of that. He's also picked grapes in Delano when I was born, and there's a lot of Filipino interest in there. They were doing everything, because that's what you did when you're an immigrant.
Yeah.
And my dad was born in Hawaii before it was even a state, so
Yeah.
picking pineapples as a teenager, wow, that's a tough job.
Yeah.
Actually, I was in the Dole Pineapple tour one time, and I saw they have big cutouts of the farm workers. I swear to God, that one looked like my dad. That was my dad.
You said about the picture from Don's too.
Yeah. But here's the thing: him and Don Ho used to pick pineapples together when they were kids. So they used to be running buddies.
Wow.
But he had that one best friend that played guitar with him. But stories I used to hear. But we didn't, like I said, you never put it together.
Never put it together.
But now you're looking back. Oh, do you remember this? All I remember is we went to the restaurants and we ate and
Yeah.
I see my other aunts and uncles getting drunk there, being nice to me and kissing me on my cheek, and because it was.
Yeah, I'm trying to paint a picture because I looked at, for example, you've seen the Left Handers Club video.
Yeah.
And you look at that, and it's not what maybe people envisioned back then.
Right.
And I'm trying to paint a picture of it wasn't like today. It's such a special thing to do that.
Right.
When you do like a Tiki Oasis or you do some kind of event that's centered around the theme, but back
Right.
then it was just party.
Oh yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they're everywhere. Sapillo, that's that big one. The I forget the name of it, where they used to have big old shows, the Luau's. It was like could hold up to 1,000 people. I forget the name of that
You're
place.
talking about the Tikis?
Yeah, the Tikis. Yeah. And then Sapillo had a lot of them too.
Yeah.
Polynesian shows and everything like that. But these were like huge places that had the venues where they would do the hula dances and the fire dances and all that.
Yeah.
I learned how to do that. I burned my back a lot. I was a kid. I had to do the hukilau, everything like that.
Yeah.
No, I can still do it.
Yeah.
You learn that as a kid, but you're hating
Turn the
it.
video back on?
Yeah.
You're hating it because all my female cousins they all did the hula, Tahitian, whatever,
Right.
and they used to babysit me and they would bring me.
Yeah.
So that's where I had to learn how to do it.
Wow.
And all my older brothers were making fun of me. You little girl, put a
That's
little grass skirt
hilarious.
on you. And I go, shut up. Anyway, but my sisters would kick and scratching me. They had
hilarious.
nails too. Anyway, I digress.
That was a
Alright.
perfect ending to any podcast.
Right,
Anyway,
right.
I digress.
I digress.
Done.
Anyway,
Well, let's just call it a wrap right there then.
thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing those stories with us. Thanks for sharing the recipe book with us.
Oh, no problem.
I want to know.
You guys are special because I'm not doing that anymore with anybody
Yeah, I
else.
want to know more about your dad and your uncle and your uncle's uncle and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So if there's anything that we missed, like
I'm
share
going
it
to pick
with
my
us.
aunt's brain because
Yeah,
she's the only
let
one
me know.
alive of all my mother's family. And I talked to and all my dad's family. They're gone. Most
Yeah,
of them.
yeah,
Or either that or the rest of
yeah.
them.
And I'd like to get.
Yeah.
We need all those pictures.
Okay,
So
I'll
we have all those
find
pictures.
them. I'll show it to you.
So we're gonna wrap this up with cocktails by the one and only Greg Bansuelo, right?
Right.
Can we do those scorpions?
Sure, I'll do a scorpion after I go to the bathroom.
Okay, wait. I gotta sign this out. We're
Okay.
gonna close this out here.
Okay.
You to go right now?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
need to go. Go.
Okay, go.
Go. All right, we're gonna
I
let
take
Greg.
it back. That is the best way to
That's
end
the
a
best way.
podcast.
We're gonna let Greg go. He's gotta go pee pee right now. So, okay, party people, we're gonna wrap this one up. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to listen to our archive, check it out on our website, desertoasisroom.com. You can go there, send us a note if you want to get on the future episode with us. And we also have a YouTube, youtube.com/Polynesian Pop. And thanks again for listening. Until the next time, cheers and aloha.